Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. The election's 2 weeks away and millions of Americans have cast their ballots. But reports of ghost voters and ballot theft are raising eyebrows about the integrity of the election. In the latest in online censorship, a top White House health advisor has his posts removed from Twitter. He wrote on the platform that masks aren't effective in stopping virus spread. That's as the White House chief of staff suggests the Trump administration will file a lawsuit against social media companies for restricting negative information about Democratic candidate Joe Biden. In Boston, Trump supporters held a rally in support of free speech and the president's re-election. They were met with opposition. And a port city in China claims over 10 million residents tested negative for the CCP virus. But Taiwan's health minister says those results are near impossible. President Donald Trump continued his campaign trail and held rallies in Prescott and Tucson, Arizona. This just 15 days from election and as Arizona began early voting on October 7th.
President Donald Trump campaigned in the battleground state of Arizona and held rallies in Prescott and Tucson. The first rally was at the Prescott Regional Airport. The president said this election is the most important in our lifetime, a choice between the American dream and a socialist nightmare.
If I don't always play by the rules of the Washington establishment, it's because I was elected to fight for you harder than any president has ever fought before. We're not going to lose our nation to socialist communists.
Trump continued, saying this election was a choice between safe vaccines versus more lockdowns, a Trump recovery at the highest end, or a Biden depression. He went on to say that Biden would implement the highest tax increase in the history of our country to contrast a Trump tax cut. Trump referenced the recent Gallup poll that showed that a majority, 56% of registered voters, believe that they are better off today than they were 4 years ago. 32% said they were worse off. The president criticized Democrats for saying they would be skeptical of a vaccine under a Trump administration. He noted that the vaccines were made by reputable pharmaceutical companies and that it was a shame people were politicizing vaccinations. He continued to describe what he thinks Biden's administration would mean for America.
He wants to bury you in regulations, outsource your jobs, dismantle your police departments, dissolve our borders. He doesn't want borders. He wants to confiscate your guns, get rid of your Second Amendment. He wants to ban American energy, no fracking.
Trump's second campaign rally was held at the Tucson International Airport. With the exception of 1996, Arizona has voted Republican in every presidential election since 1952. In 2016, Trump won Arizona by 3.5%. But in 2018, for the first time in many years, Democrats won 4 statewide elections in Arizona. If Arizona follows this trend for this upcoming election, it won't be a guaranteed red state like it used to be. On the other side of the country, Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris campaigned in Florida. She participated in a drive-in campaign in Orlando and a voter mobilization event in Jacksonville.
Everything is on the ballot in 2020. Joe Biden is on the ballot in 2020.
Joe Biden will not hold any events until the presidential debate on October 22nd. Christina Kim, NTD News.
The First Lady will return to the campaign trail on Tuesday for the first time since contracting the CCP virus. She plans to join her husband at a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, and also plans to attend the debate on October 22nd. Amidst a growing wave of online censorship, the latest to have his posts blocked by Twitter is top White House health advisor Scott Atlas. Allegedly, he violated Twitter's guidelines by writing a post claiming masks are not effective for stopping the spread of the virus. Twitter called this false information.
On Sunday, Atlas, who joined the White House coronavirus task force in August, wrote, "Masks work? No," followed by a list of U.S. states and countries that have mandated masks, yet still have very large virus outbreaks. He also said the use of masks is not supported by evidence. The post was removed by Twitter later that day. A spokesperson for Twitter told the Associated Press that the tweet violated its policy of sharing false or misleading information about the CCP virus that could lead to harm. Atlas said in an email to the Associated Press that Twitter's action amounted to censorship and that his post was meant to show the general population masks and mask mandates do not work, but said masks should be worn when people can't socially distance. Atlas has come under increased scrutiny by the mainstream media for his views on handling the pandemic, such as criticizing the lockdowns and advocating for the reopening of schools. Several months into the pandemic, whether masks are effective or not is still a contentious issue. The studies and health experts that suggest masks are effective at stopping the spread of the virus are popularized in the media, while the large number of studies that have found masks to be ineffective are widely ignored or discredited. Grace Coulter, NTD News, New York.
And on the issue of censorship, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has suggested that the Trump administration will bring a lawsuit against Facebook and Twitter for blocking and restricting incriminating news reports about Joe Biden and his son Hunter. And the Director of National Intelligence debunked the idea that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. This comes after some have claimed the laptop is part of a smear campaign from Russia.
The Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, said in an interview with Fox Business that the laptop and emails from Hunter Biden are not a part of a Russian disinformation campaign. This is in response to a comment made by Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He said in an interview with CNN that the claims of the New York Post about Hunter Biden are false and a part of a smear campaign from the Kremlin. Ratcliffe said there was no intelligence that supports the idea that it was a part of a Russian campaign and that no intelligence was shared with Schiff or anyone from Congress that it was a part of Russian disinformation. Ratcliffe went on to say that his role was in part to make sure that information was not leveraged to forward a certain political narrative, which is what some are trying to do by claiming the laptop is disinformation. New York Post op-ed editor Sohrab Ahmari pushed back on the allegations that the Post's reporting on Hunter Biden's ties to China and Ukraine are fabricated. Ahmari pointed out that neither the former vice president or his son denied the truth or authenticity of the emails in the laptop. New York Post's official Twitter account has been inactive since October 14th. This comes after Twitter refuses to unlock the Post's official Twitter account unless they delete the posts about Hunter Biden's scandal. According to the New York Post, a Twitter representative told them in an email that, quote, "While we've updated the policy, we don't change enforcement retroactively. You will still need to delete the tweets to regain access to your account." On October 19th, Rudy Giuliani said that more is coming out about the Biden family and more money is involved. Christina Kim, NTD News.
And Representative Adam Schiff's spokesperson, Patrick Boland, said that the Director of National Intelligence is purposefully misrepresenting Schiff's words in order to, quote, mislead the public and validate the latest attacks by President Trump and his allies on Vice President Biden. Boland said the claims against Biden and his son are consistent with the false and unsubstantiated narratives pushed by Trump and his lawyer. And the presidential election is just over 2 weeks away. As of Saturday, over 26 million people have already voted nationwide. But there are concerns over the integrity of the election as more people vote by mail. Our reporter Kevin Hogan brings us more on early voting, inflated voter rolls, and rejected ballot applications.
Early voting is well underway across the country with long lines in places like Arkansas and even in Alaska. In the Big Easy, voters are going to the polls wearing masks and social distancing. Early voters said the lines aren't normally this long.
This is the first time I ever saw a line like this, and this is history.
Many people are choosing to vote by mail to avoid exposure to the CCP virus. Officials in Washington state said many ballots were stolen out of mailboxes in the city of Sammamish. Police also responded to garbage bags found full of mail, including ballots. Investigators said there is no evidence the incident was politically motivated, and the police are working to return the stolen mail to its rightful owners. And the conservative government watchdog Judicial Watch has found a problem with the voter rolls in over 350 U.S. counties. According to their analysis, there are 1.8 million more registered voters than eligible voting age citizens. They refer to the excess as ghost voters. Also, Judicial Watch found another inconsistency. Registered voters exceed the number of eligible voters in Alaska, Colorado, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And Pennsylvania rejected over 370,000 mail-in ballot applications, causing confusion among voters and officials. According to local officials, the ballots were rejected because they were duplicates, as many voters had already applied for ballots during the primary election in June. An analysis by data firm TargetSmart shows that nationwide, Democrats have cast about half of the early ballots compared to about a third by Republicans. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Rockdale is a small county right outside of Georgia's Atlanta capital. The county has been run by Democrats for over a decade, but that didn't stop some Republican candidates from campaigning there, with hopes of drawing out more Republican votes there this year. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports from Metro Atlanta.
And Bubba, they would do this, they'd whisper.
Congressman Doug Collins, now running to represent Georgia in the U.S. Senate, encouraged Republican voters in the Democrat-run Atlanta suburbs to show up this election. The congressman told NTD that infrastructure is a top priority for Georgia, but on a national level, his focus is on paralyzing the Chinese Communist Party.
They only understand one thing, the financial interest of China. They don't care about their people, they don't care about the world, they understand themselves. So we're going to attack them right where they hurt.
What does that mean, attack them right where they are?
By actually taking on the leaders, making sure that their assets all over the world are frozen, make sure they can't travel. Do the things until they want to come on and be a real international player that actually abides by the rules, that has fair trade agreements and do those things, then they just need to stay in China and deal with the people that they're persecuting right now.
Collins sponsored a bill called the Defend Trade Secrets Act, which allows the U.S. a way to cut off the supply of intellectual property to China. And Josie Cruz, running as a congressional candidate to represent Georgia's 4th District, says she's motivated by her upbringing under a socialist system in Venezuela.
Because District Number 4 is being under the socialist agenda for over 30 years, okay? That's why you see so much poverty and so much decline in the district. When you drive around the district, you feel like you are in a third world country.
I've been working with the juvenile court for 7-8 years now, and I've seen a lot of kids slip through the cracks. I think we all need to kind of get together and really get to what the root of the problem is. I think a lot of it is some of these single-family homes.
Another local told us why he turned away from the Democratic Party, even after he ran for a legislative position as a Democrat when he was 25.
I saw the biggest difference between the two parties was that the Republican Party actually wanted to make a positive difference in the everyday life of its citizens. Because if government doesn't make a positive difference in the everyday life of the citizens, there's no need for government.
With elections just 14 days away, locals will be watching closely to see if this county turns red or stays blue. Reporting from Metro Atlanta, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The U.S. Department of Justice has charged 6 members of a Russian military agency over international hacking operations. The Assistant Attorney General says it's Russia's effort to weaponize the cyberspace and destabilize foreign countries.
The Justice Department announced charges against 6 hackers of the Russian Military Intelligence Agency, GRU, on Monday. They are allegedly responsible for a series of hacking attacks against other countries' businesses, critical infrastructure, and elections. The DOJ revealed these hackers all belong to the same team and are allegedly responsible for the interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Assistant Attorney General for National Security John C. Demers says it is a part of Russia's attempt to destabilize and sabotage foreign countries.
But this indictment lays bare Russia's use of its cyber capabilities to destabilize and interfere with the domestic political and economic systems of other countries, thus providing a cold reminder of why its proposal is nothing more than dishonest rhetoric and cynical and cheap propaganda.
Demers says this is evidence to not continue a U.S.-Russia cyber reset talk. He also says the attack on the 3 U.S. victims include loss of nearly $1 billion. This includes the Heritage Valley Health System in western Pennsylvania. U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania says the disruption to patient care could not be quantified.
As a result of the NotPetya malware attack, Heritage Valley Health Systems, which provides health care to tens of thousands in western Pennsylvania, lost access to their mission-critical computer systems, such as those used for cardiology, nuclear medicine, radiology, and surgery.
Demers says the NotPetya malware also destroyed a Ukraine power grid, causing thousands to lose heat during the winter. The DOJ press conference also covered how NotPetya took down the IT systems of the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, targeted the 2017 French elections, and Georgian government and businesses.
Tensions between Iran and the U.S. are still high. Yesterday, an arms embargo on the Middle Eastern country ended, even though the U.S. highly disapproved of it.
A United Nations conventional arms embargo on Iran was due to expire on Sunday, despite strong U.S. opposition. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced the U.S. will sanction any country selling weapons to the Middle Eastern nation. He said selling arms to Iran would fuel conflict and tension rather than promoting peace and security. Iran, however, says it's self-reliant in its defense and has no need to go on a weapons buying spree.
We are exporters. We are now self-sufficient. We are now militarily self-sufficient, and we even help other countries. And this is proven. The world knows this.
But according to an Iranian political analyst, there are some countries to which Iran might turn to buy arms now that the embargo has been lifted.
What Tehran will be looking for will be maybe cooperation with countries like Russia and China.
Western military analysts say Iran often exaggerates its weapons capabilities, but the U.S. has acknowledged concerns about Iran's long-range ballistic missile program.
Coming up, Trump's supporters face off with Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters as they hold a free speech rally in Boston, Massachusetts. An assembly of multi-ethnic Trump supporters held a free speech rally in Boston. They say civil discourse is being suffocated by the radical left. BLM protesters and Antifa showed up to counter the event.
Trump supporters and Republicans on one side, Black Lives Matter and Antifa on the other. Another battle of ideologies as the country nears the November election. Right-wing activists held a rally in Boston to speak out against violence used by leftist groups to suppress them. One Trump supporter recounts an incident in 2017 where tens of thousands of protesters harassed and assaulted a group of about 50 conservatives. The protesters claimed they were fascist.
Not one of them were fascists. They're people who are just like you. They're conservatives and libertarians who believe in free speech, they believe in equality, they believe in the free exchange of ideas and political discourse. What happened that day? 33 arrests, numerous counts of assault and battery against police officers, disorderly conduct.
Rayla Campbell, a Republican who's running for Congress, said she was recently attacked after a Trump rally. She got a fractured tibia and a minor concussion.
There's been a target put on my back. Why? Because I am a Catholic. Because I am a Republican. Because I am a strong American woman.
Across the street from the rally, protesters performed a cult-like ritual with an effigy of President Trump. One of them reportedly ate a fake heart, which represented the president's heart. Then they started chanting about chaos gods and F-12.
Chaos gods! Chaos gods!
Rachiopi said he loses sleep at night thinking of the threat on American values from Marxist thought. He also said he's concerned when protesters are not held accountable for attacking police officers.
The violence is instigated against police officers, it's levied against conservatives, and what are we supposed to do? Just take it? We're going to take this forever? I say no, we're not going to take it. We're going to keep on showing up and using our voices and talk about what we believe in.
Between the two protests, an estimated 1,000 people showed up. Boston police confirmed that 2 anti-Trump protesters were arrested after they scuffled with officers. Reporting by Don Tran and Jingya Liu, NTD News.
Violence erupted during a free speech demonstration in San Francisco this past Saturday. Several were injured as counter-protesters disrupted the event. The conservative group Team Save America organized the rally on Saturday and United Nations Plaza. It was held to protest against big tech censorship. According to San Francisco's police department, counter-protesters began throwing glass bottles and eggs at demonstrators and law enforcement minutes after the rally began. The event became so violent that the police declared it a public safety hazard and shut it down. Several rally participants, as well as 3 police officers, sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Twitter suspended the account of the event organizer Philip Anderson following the event, citing a violation of Twitter's rules. And early voting has officially kicked off in the Sunshine State, and Floridians are waiting in line to cast their ballots for the upcoming November election. The crucial swing state's vote will prove crucial for both nominees' election chances.
The 2020 presidential election is less than a month away, with a record 28 million Americans having already cast their ballots nationwide. That number is only going to get higher. Voters in Florida are lining up at polling places to make their voices heard. We talked to residents from Winter Haven and Miami to hear their thoughts on some of the country's most important issues. Some Floridians said they were satisfied with President Trump's major tax reform bill.
Definitely help me employ more people to work. That if the taxes are going up, I have to send people out of work. I cannot pay them. I have to pay either taxes or people, so I have to pay taxes because otherwise I have to close a business.
The president promised he would make even bigger tax cuts if he's reelected. Joe Biden, however, said he plans to repeal some, but not all, of Trump's tax cuts if he becomes president. When it comes to energy policy, some Florida residents said they want the energy costs to go down.
I would say maybe go more towards energy efficiency policies, looking for more renewable energy for sure. Because right now the cost of energy keeps rising, and definitely that makes a whole difference in the budgets of many households here.
Some Floridians simply want whoever wins to do what's best for the American people, regardless of their political party.
Especially, we're right now in very hard times with uncertainty, and what we need is, instead of being differentiating left from right, we need to actually try to make a difference, whichever that is.
As of Monday, over 1 million Democrats and over 700,000 Republicans have voted by mail. Florida's prize of 29 electoral votes is tied with New York for third most, behind only California and Texas. In the race for the 270 electoral college votes that determine the presidential winner under the U.S. system.
Here's a trend that might entice you back into movie theaters. Rent your own personal screening room for $99. AMC Theaters is letting customers rent out auditoriums for private screenings, a growing trend during the pandemic. You're allowed to invite up to 20 friends and family members to join you. Popcorn is extra, and for some movies, the theater rental price can increase to as much as $349. AMC is joining other cinemas in the new offering, which is designed to keep them afloat after record-breaking losses due to the pandemic. It's part of the movie industry's efforts to find creative solutions to its unprecedented financial problems. The $99 theater rental option is available in most states, with the exception of New York, Alaska, and Hawaii. And coming up, authorities in a Chinese port city claim 10 million residents are virus-free. That's as the city continues mass testing locals. But Taiwan's health minister casts doubt on the results. And the controversial pathway to immigration has been officially closed. Chinese tycoons and communist regime officials had used it to migrate to Europe. That and more when we return. Now we turn to a port city in China where authorities are mass virus testing. They claim 10 million residents tested negative, but Taiwan's health minister raises doubts. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
Now we turn to the CCP, or Chinese Communist Party, virus situation in Qingdao. The city's mass testing results have come under scrutiny. Authorities have tested over 10 million residents within 5 days. They claim that all of them have come back negative. Speaking at a press conference, Taiwan's health minister questioned whether Chinese authorities are telling the truth.
Frankly speaking, it's quite remarkable to see they all tested negative, but results like these are impossible.
Chen oversees Taiwan's pandemic response. He explained that normal mass testing results would bring back a mix of false positives and false negatives. That's because the accuracy rate isn't 100%. Qingdao is located in China's eastern Shandong province. Health authorities there have a history of underreporting cases, notably back in February. That's according to internal documents obtained by NTD. On February 18th, 52 patients in Shandong tested positive, but the province's CDC only reported 1 new case. And on February 21st, 59 new cases were diagnosed. The agency reported 2 of them. In an interview with Hong Kong newspaper Apple Daily, a Hong Kong political commentator cast doubts on Qingdao's mass testing results. He suggested local authorities reported all negative results in an effort to prevent damaging Chinese Communist Party head Xi Jinping's political image. Xi oversees China's pandemic response. Under the regime's political system, a low number of virus infections would likely be seen as a political achievement, and any spikes in infection rates would undermine the achievement. The expert asserted that local authorities probably don't dare to reveal the true scale of the virus. Taiwan and China's foreign ministries are trading blows after a Taiwanese diplomat ended up hospitalized. Taiwan said one of their diplomats in Fiji was assaulted by Chinese officials who tried to crash a reception held by Taiwan's diplomatic mission. Violence ensued, ending with a diplomat in the hospital with a head injury. The reception was in celebration of Taiwan's 109th National Day. Taiwan's foreign ministry said in a statement it strongly condemns the violence against its diplomat in Fiji, adding as a sovereign state it will not be intimidated but will continue to celebrate Taiwan National Day everywhere, every year. China's foreign ministry denied the allegations, claiming Taiwan started the fight. Fiji's foreign ministry has not issued a statement. Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory and has ramped up pressure on Taipei to accept Chinese sovereignty, including sending fighter jets near the democratically run island. The Pacific is a major source of competition between the two, where Taiwan has formal diplomatic relations with 4 countries, though not Fiji. Taiwan does have an established representative office in Fiji dating back to 1971. Now we look to the issue of food storage in China. After enduring the virus, severe flooding, drought, and locust plagues, concerns are rising about the country's grain production. On Friday, state-run media outlet The Discipline Monitor published an article detailing the country's grain management situation in recent years, focusing on those that involved corrupt officials. Such cases appeared every year like clockwork across the country and in all levels of agriculture bureaus. The main corruption practices include creating fake transactions that don't actually exist, artificially raising the weight of the grain being sold to warehouses. That way, the seller makes a bigger profit off of less product, and keeping profits from selling grain from warehouses for themselves while reporting losses or shortages. So why do the same corrupt techniques succeed over and over? According to the report, one deputy secretary's comment from the Qingshan County Commission for Discipline Inspection in Sichuan Province may hold the answer. The secretary admitted that many supervision department officials simply turn their heads the other way, defeating the purpose of the entire department. A grain warehouse manager from the same county explained the Grain Bureau officials just walk around and glance at documents. The problems haven't been addressed for many years.
And a controversial pathway to immigration has been officially closed. A passport for sale scandal in Cyprus, an island country in southern Europe, put an end to the practice. Chinese tycoons and communist regime officials had used it to migrate to Europe.
The eastern Mediterranean country Cyprus has announced the suspension of a golden passport scheme to sell citizenship to wealthy investors. According to documents leaked this August called the Cyprus Papers, around 500 Chinese tycoons and CCP officials have obtained the golden passports during 2017 to 2019. That's over 35% of the total number of these passports issued during that period. The program of this EU member country requires a $2.5 million investment into the country in order to gain Cyprus citizenship. People who get a Cyprus passport are granted easy access to all nations of the European Union. Thus, Cyprus can be a transition to other wealthier countries. But the program became questionable because some people without a clean record still managed to get Cyprus citizenship. For example, some of those 500 Chinese were found to have criminal records. That poses a threat to other EU countries. Cyprus's government tweeted last week that the golden passport scheme will be abolished from November 1st because the program has some loopholes and has been abused. The decision was made one day after the release of an investigative report from the Arabic news network Al Jazeera. The report reveals that former president of the House of Representatives in Cyprus and a House member were willing to assist high-risk persons with criminal records to obtain a golden passport. A reporter from Al Jazeera posed as a Chinese businessman who had supposedly been found guilty of money laundering. According to Cyprus law, he would not be qualified for the golden passport. However, the Cyprus House member guaranteed to get him one as long as he invested enough in the country. After the report went public, the European Union was shocked and requested the government of Cyprus to investigate the case thoroughly. The European Commission had warned Cyprus in an early 2019 report that the golden passport scheme could help organized crime to infiltrate Europe and increase the risk of money laundering, corruption, and tax evasion. As early as 2010, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, or CAS, researched the number of CCP officials that had fled from China. The data revealed the number had reached 18,000 at that time, and they took with them $120 billion. That's an average of over $6.5 million per person. It's thought CCP officials take advantage of schemes such as the Golden Passport and other similar programs to gain citizenship in other countries.
The BBC found paid-for anti-Trump content on TikTok. FTC guidelines say videos must indicate they were paid for.
TikTok has removed posts after a BBC investigation. It found a marketing company called Big Tent Creative paid content creators to make anti-Trump videos. The videos called for Trump to be removed from office. When the BBC flagged the videos, TikTok did take some of them down, but they already had hundreds of thousands of views. Political advertisements aren't allowed on TikTok, and users are supposed to say if they've been paid to make a particular video, but none of the anti-Trump videos disclose that Big Tent paid for them. TikTok says it relies on users to follow US Federal Trade Commission or FTC guidelines. The FTC says creators should always disclose paid partnerships. Some users say video posts look better when TikTok's paid for option is not checked, so they don't like to do it. The Trump administration banned TikTok last month, but a district judge granted an injunction that will last until the election is at least over.
Coming up, how will virus control measures affect your kids' future salary? We have details on a new report. And China's official GDP number is out, but are they telling the truth? More on that when we return. The United States and Poland have struck a nuclear power agreement. Poland will likely buy $18 billion in nuclear technology from U.S. companies. That's according to the U.S. Energy Department. The United States is competing with countries like Russia and China. They want to supply nuclear power technology to countries hoping to build their first nuclear reactors or boost their programs. The deal will reduce Poland's energy dependence on Russia. It aims to stop buying Russia's natural gas after 2022, opting for pipeline deliveries from Norway instead. And it plans to buy liquefied natural gas from the United States and other countries. Poland wants its first reactors to operate by 2033. The program will potentially be worth around $40 billion. And another unintended impact of lockdowns and virus control measures. A new report says school closures will have a big impact on students' future earnings. It predicts children in primary and secondary school will lose tens of thousands of dollars in future earnings because of it. Here's the details.
A Penn Wharton budget model report at UPenn says students from K through 12 are losing $12,000 to $15,000 from their future earnings for each month schools remain closed. It projects students have already lost between $43,000 to $57,000 in future earnings. That's up to 5% of their lifetime wage earnings as of October 2020. There are currently over 56 million students in primary and secondary schools in the U.S. 90% of them are enrolled in public schools. Since schools closed in March, students have already lost a combined $2.8 trillion. If schools remain closed until next year, the report estimates students will lose an additional $2 trillion. If schools remain closed for the 2020 to 2021 school year, students would each lose nearly $200,000. That's 15% of their future earnings. The report says most teachers and parents agree that children are getting a lower level of education online versus in the classroom. Some teachers say student engagement is low for distance learning, especially for low-income, single-parent, or already low-achieving students. Many schools across the country are still closed because of the virus.
Some economic and market news. Pharmacy chain CVS says it will hire 15,000 employees in the fourth quarter. It's predicting a winter wave of COVID-19 and the flu. Over 10,000 of the new hires will be full and part-time pharmacy technicians. They'll be at physical stores to help with COVID-19 vaccine and tests. Last week, the government partnered with CVS to give COVID-19 vaccines to nursing homes. They will be distributed once one is approved. Public health officers are still working on it. China's economic numbers are out today. It posted its third quarter growth, but the number fell below expectations. We talked to a Chinese economics expert to get his take.
China says its third quarter GDP grew 4.9% compared to a year ago. That's lower than the more than 5% analysts predicted, but better than the second quarter's growth. We talked to Shehzad Kazi at China Beige Book. It's an independent research organization that focuses on Chinese economic data. He says a closer look at the data shows the recovery is largely driven by industrial sectors and state investment, not household spending.
And so the takeaway remains that this is not a recovery that is being driven by Chinese consumption. This is very much a recovery that is being driven by foreign demand for Chinese products and the Chinese manufacturing sector.
Overall, the first three quarters saw a 0.7% GDP growth, but retail sales are still 7.2% down compared to last year. Contrary to what many analysts believe, that China will be the only economy in the world to post year-over-year growth in 2020, Kazi says China Beige Book's data shows that's doubtful.
But if you look at year-ago levels, the economy remains most certainly in a contraction. And so China has not yet, despite what some of the headlines may suggest, China has not yet fully recovered or rebounded back to pre-pandemic levels of growth.
Kazi adds that there is also the continuing problem with data revision and reliability of Chinese data. For example, China revised down its fixed asset investment number last year to make this year's number look better.
What we're seeing is discrepancy not so much in this particular data, but the basis on which we're calculating change. So a lot of the fixed asset investment data, for example, has been revised and brought down for last year. So on that basis, this year's fixed asset investment data is not going to look better. I think one of the things we need to really contend with is that Chinese GDP is a political figure. The Chinese GDP is a target that is set and must be hit.
For example, retail sales dropped 7 months out of the 9 months, but the official narrative is that Chinese consumers are powering this recovery, so the Chinese officials' number will have to reflect that sentiment.
Up next, 3 days after a history teacher was reportedly beheaded, allegedly by an Islamist, French police raided the homes of suspected Islamic radicals, and the government is also probing dozens of Muslim associations. And with 2 sheets of corrugated steel, curtain hooks, and a hose pipe, a retired British Army major made a boat, and he's rowing it to raise money for charity. Find out more after the break. Over to Europe. The reported beheading of a teacher by a suspect Islamist shocked France and carried echoes of an attack 5 years ago on the offices of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. The government is considering whether to dissolve some Muslim groups. NTD's UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Thanks, New York. Welcome to the UK newsroom with UK and European news. French police raided Islamic associations and homes of foreigners suspected of extremist religious beliefs. The search has come 3 days after a school teacher was beheaded.
In addition, France's Interior Minister says the government has mobilised unprecedented levels of resources to fight Islamism in social media.
Since the killing of this teacher, 80 investigations for online hate speech have been opened.
He says he's also looking into whether or not certain French Muslim groups should be dissolved following accusations of promoting violence and hate. Last Friday, 47-year-old history teacher Samuel Petty was murdered in broad daylight outside his school in a middle-class Paris suburb by an 18-year-old of Chechen origin. Police shot the attacker dead. The teenage assassin sought to avenge his victim's use of caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad in a class on freedom of expression to 13-year-olds. Muslims believe that any depiction of the Prophet is blasphemous. Thousands of people across France are gathering to support teachers and defend freedom of expression.
We're here to defend the Republic, the values of the Republic, liberty, equality, fraternity, and secularism.
Local residents and school children are continuing to pay tribute to Patty. Flowers are piling up outside the school where he taught.
Nowadays, having this happen is incomprehensible. We can't believe it. It's overwhelming.
The attacker, who was of Chechen origin and was born in Russia, was not previously known to the intelligence services. The killing shocked France and carried echoes of an attack 5 years ago on the offices of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo after it published the cartoons.
Wales, the small country in southwest UK, is imposing a 2-week lockdown beginning Friday. The government is requiring everyone to stay at home.
Everyone except essential workers, that is. All non-essential retail, leisure, hospitality and tourism businesses will have to close in Wales.
Between Friday, the 23rd of October and the 9th of November, everyone in Wales will be required to stay at home.
The entire UK reported almost 17,000 new cases of the CCP virus on Sunday. Wales recorded nearly 1,000, up from just 400 at the start of the month.
I think it was always going to be coming anyway, and I'm glad it's coming sooner rather than later.
Italy had nearly 12,000 new cases on Sunday. The Italian government has unveiled a further package of measures determined to avoid a second lockdown.
The country cannot afford a new stop that would end up seriously harming our economy.
Italy was the first country in Europe to be hit hard by the virus and has the second highest death toll in the region after Britain.
And British Airways' new boss appealed to Britain and the United States to back pre-flight virus testing. He also suggested lifting quarantine restrictions between certain transatlantic destinations.
The industry has blamed blanket quarantines for flyers for worsening its dramatic slump in business. But a British-US testing programme requires both governments to waive the quarantines.
In the first instance, we need to work together on a testing pilot so flights can start between London and New York, traditionally one of the busiest airline routes in the world.
But Doyle said that they are not hearing from governments.
Pre-flight testing lets our customers know the risk of travelling in close proximity to someone who is infected is low, and governments can be confident they are not importing the disease. The decision on which is the most appropriate test is for the authorities to decide.
Doyle was addressing the airline's 2050 online conference, which Grant Shapps, the UK Transport Minister, also attended. Shapps said at the conference he would push for an agreement on new travel corridors with the United States.
And Germany's Deutsche Telekom company has successfully connected its 4G network on the ground to an antenna on an aircraft in the Stratosphere. It's partnering with British startup Stratospheric Platforms to bring mobile coverage to remote areas that ground-based networks fail to reach. Aerial antennas can do the job of 200 terrestrial towers, but keeping them aloft is a challenge. The current expectation is that a craft will fly for 9 days using an emission-free hydrogen fuel cell system. Hosting base stations in the stratosphere promises the fast reaction times that next-generation 5G networks will need to support innovations such as self-driving cars. A group of 15 countries told the European Union it needs to come up with a strategy to counter disinformation about 5G technology. The EU sees 5G as the linchpin of its economy recovery from the pandemic and for technology autonomy, but conspiracy theories that the CCP virus may be linked to 5G have led to the torching of mobile phone masts in 10 European countries. Maintenance workers have been assaulted in recent months. The 15 countries wrote to the EU urging more scientific research on the risks to people's health. And an 80-year-old retired British Army major is raising money for charity by rowing a homemade boat.
Michael Stanley, also known as Major Mick, served in the army for 35 years. He created the boat out of 2 sheets of corrugated steel, curtain hooks and hosepipe.
And it was an idea that I had in my mind when the lockdown came.
Major Mick has nicknamed the boat Titanic and set himself a target of rowing it 100 miles in total along a canal in southern England. His aim is to raise money for a local hospice.
And if I can raise a few pounds, then so much the better.
He is doing 2 3-mile rounds each week, taking him about 90 minutes each round.
My reward is the smiles on people's faces. They are so supportive and so generous.
Major Mick's already raised over $15,000, beating his original $1,300 target.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Back to New York.
Thanks, Neil. And up next, a figure of a giant ancient cat has been found engraved into a hill in Peru. The 2,000-year-old cat was restored by archaeologists and is part of the famous and mysterious Nazca Lines. And a new record set for a sport known as slacklining. It looks a little like tightrope walking, and it ain't for the faint of heart. That and more after the break. Amazing discoveries about ancient South American cultures continue to be made. Archaeologists recently discovered a never-before-seen figure of a giant cat.
A discovery was made among the famed Nazca Lines of southern Peru. The figure of the giant cat was etched into the hillside in the desert.
It was basically made by forming lines or furrows of 12 to 16 inches wide, which outlined the figure, and some parts, such as the eyes and the mouth, were formed by piling up rocks.
Drone footage provides a bird's-eye view of the 121-foot-long figure. Peruvian archaeologists restored the lines to their former glory after 2,000 years of erosion had left them hidden from view.
The figure was in the process of disappearing due to the fact that it is on a hillside and is more than 2,000 years old, and the erosion had been very strong. So this has basically allowed it to remain hidden for many years.
The geoglyphs created by the Nazca and Paracas cultures are striking reminders of Peru's rich pre-Columbian history. No one alive today knows for sure why they were drawn. The Nazca Lines were declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994.
You've heard of tightrope walking, but one athlete in Germany has set a world record for slacklining. It's a similar sport, but with a looser line made of stretchier material, though neither are for the faint of heart.
A new stadium slackline world record has been set in Nuremberg, Germany. German slackliner Jens Decker crossed the city soccer stadium at a height of 240 feet. The venue was chosen thanks to its running track that circles the infield, making the stadium larger than most. He balanced across the slack line from floodlight pole to floodlight pole for a distance of over 750 feet. He also broke the world record for the longest highline walk in a stadium.
The difficulty here on the 750 feet long high line is keeping your concentration. Because the weakest link is always the concentration. You are up there and you certainly have a queasy feeling in your tummy.
But he says the daring act was completely safe. Ropes and carabiner clasps guard against injury in case of a fall. His team has been highlining for years, performing heart-stopping heights from Sierra Nevada to Brazil. The team's balancing act in Nuremberg has once again raised the bar.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.